and good morning. Welcome to our live feed update for September 23rd. I'm your host, Taran Armstrong, and I am here today to update you on everything that happened yesterday on the Big Brother 24 live feeds. It was day 79 in the house. We're going to talk about that. And then I'm going to go through Monty's game across the entirety. Big Brother 24. We did it yesterday with Taylor, and today we're going to do it with Monty. Someday I'll sleep again. Let's get into it. First of all, let's quickly run through what happened yesterday on day 79 in the house. Prior to the eviction, Taylor and Brittany had one last conversation. Brittany told Taylor again that if she wants to win the game, she has to be sitting next to Monty and not Turner. Advice that could cost Taylor the game. She admitted her vote against Taylor to Taylor. Taylor laughed about it, said it was fine. Taylor told Brittany about the Brit flea, true meaning behind that comic. And then, of course, Brittany was evicted later in the night. After the feeds came back from last night's eviction, the house guests had done their final 3 game recap stuff, and they had competed in part 1 of the final 3 HOH. And the winner of part 1 of the final 3 HOH was Turner. There were apparently multiple parts to it. It wasn't just like a straight spinning disc or anything, but there was a spinning component. Sounds to me like perhaps one of those like sort of the cat one, perhaps. Not entirely sure. But either way, Turner wins part 1. This is huge for Turner because he now has a spot in part 3. Even if he can't win part 3, he has leverage to be able to make a deal with the people competing, with the other person competing in part 3. Usually how this happens is whoever wins part 2 is will then make a deal with Turner and say, hey, we're both in part 3. Let's both agree that we're taking each other. Not only do you have an incentive to make a deal with the person, but you also have incentive to sort of wrap your head around the idea that that person is a good person to take to the end. In the same way that Brittany was incentivized to think that Turner was the biggest threat in the game because he was the only other option against her on the block. When you have a lot of incentive to make a deal with a person at the end, you might go ahead and do it. So Monty and Taylor will be competing in part 2 of the final 3 HOH at some point today on day 80. So I will, of course, be back tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. Eastern to update you on everything that happens today on the Big Brother 24 live feeds, including probably who wins part 2 and what kinds of conversations happen after that. Now, there was one conversation last night that was interesting enough to mention here before we get into Monty's game, and that is that Turner and Taylor did talk about jury votes. Turner has not really discussed any of this with Taylor until now, which is interesting, obviously. He starts talking about how he thinks that he loses to both Taylor and Monty. He says that the only person he feels confident he might have is Kyle. He's not sure where Terrence might go. Taylor tells him that Terrence is a vote for Monty. He says he's definitely lost Alyssa. And of course, there's a lot of posturing going on here. Taylor genuinely believes that Turner beats her and thinks that he might beat Monty, given what Brittany told her. Turner, I think, is posturing, but perhaps genuinely believes that he might not have a good chance. It was an interesting conversation, especially if we're tracking where Turner really stands. So they both agree, and Turner brings this up. Turner says Monty is beloved by the jury. And you versus me, he says to Taylor, that's more of a toss-up. I could see it going either way, but I think you beat me, Taylor. he thinks that the jury just likes Taylor more than they like him. He's like, I'm confident in who I am, but I don't think the jury likes me very much. Taylor tells him, well, you have Brittany's vote locked in if you take Monty to the final two. He goes, what? Really? Yeah. She was so mad at Monty. If you're sitting next to Monty, you definitely have Brittany's vote. And he's like, wow. Okay. Yeah, she's convinced that you're the winner. What are you doing? Why would you say that? He had no idea that this was the case. You could make the argument that she's trying to gain credibility by telling him this, but no. I don't think this is a good move. She tells him that Brittany admitted to voting her out. He says that's good to hear. And she also talks again, another shout out to the podcast. Who knew we'd get so many shout outs from somebody that had never actually, I guess she had, watched the Taylor interview, but really was introduced to the podcast by Brittany talking about it for the most part. Taylor says she wants to go back to the preseason and listen to the predictions that we had in the preseason, which is funny because there was one day of preseason. But also funny because I feel like this is the go-to for so many players, is that they love to look at like the preseason predictions. And it's just like, those were the least accurate predictions. Like, those are the least valuable. That's the least valuable content of the entire season. I mean, it's funny to look at the preseason stuff. But if you really want to get a sense of like how you were viewed, that's just gonna give you a warped perspective. Granted, people liked Taylor in the preseason. Anyway, let's talk about Monty. So, of course, there's an episode tonight. I'll be live on Twitch watching it, and then we'll be on the podcast afterward talking about it. Recap of the recap, but also some stuff to talk about, I think, from last night's episode, the jury segment, and then also we'll talk about parts 1 and 2 and where things might go from there. But in the meantime, I'm going to talk about Monty's game from start to finish here. From week 1 to now. And how this is going to work is I'm going to go through the whole game. At the end, I'm going to summarize it. And then I'm going to give my thoughts overall on Monty's game. So let's just jump straight in. You know the drill at this point. Week 1. Daniel is the HOH. He wants to target Michael, and he eventually wants to target Michael. You got a girls alliance on one hand. You got some guys getting together on the other hand. Daniel doesn't want to target any strong, tall guys unless they're Michael. So he nominates Terrence and Michael, with Michael as the target. But what is Monty doing? Well, he gets a 6 in the stock watch this first week. He's going to bond with Kyle on night 1 and mention that he wants to get the strong people together. That is very quickly what Monty jumps into. Bonding with Kyle, who is going to be his closest ally all the way up until Kyle really starts to distance himself because of his cookout theories. Monty wants to get the strong people together because, hey, I'm a strong person. On day 2, Monty has both the guys in the house, Pooch and Kyle, primarily at this point, and the women, Paloma and Alyssa, primarily, of course, with Amira as well, wanting to work with him. He's eventually brought into both alliances, the Oasis for the guys and Mamba for the women. He's going to pitch that they should target Taylor when Michael wins the veto. So he's now in Mamba, he's in Oasis, and the women don't like Taylor, and there's the guys also don't like Taylor. So Michael wins the veto, and prior to the stuff that goes down with Taylor, she has a conversation with her, or he has a conversation with her the morning of day 4, where she says, "Hey, I want to give you a heads up. I think you should talk with Paloma. I think that I don't want there to be any tension between the guys and the women, essentially." And he doesn't really buy it. After Michael wins the veto, Monty, along with the other men in the house in Oasis, are going to make pitches to Daniel that Taylor should be the target. Taylor should be the renom. This is, again, prior to Monty learning that Taylor was lying to him. Then, after pitching for Taylor to go up on the block, this is when all of this stuff is going out. She asked Turner to do the dishes. She wore a finale dress. She called Jasmine fat, so on and so forth. Monty's going to ask Paloma about what he heard from Taylor. He kicks off this huge storm against Taylor that night. He tells Paloma essentially that Taylor told him she was targeting him, which was a bit of a misunderstanding on his part. That's on day 4. And again, everything spirals from there. On day 5, Taylor has been locked in as not only the target this week, but also the house pariah. And Monty is going to tell Mamba about Oasis. He tells them that Pooch started a guys' alliance called Oasis, and this sets off the chain of events that eventually leads to Pooch's eviction the following week. Because he volunteered this information. Monty is going to have a conversation with Taylor the following day, on day 6, where she clears up the misunderstanding with Paloma. She tells him, "No, I was just trying to get you to talk with Paloma. I wasn't trying to say she was coming for you or anything like that." Monty goes, "Oh, wow, I totally misunderstood that conversation. Whoops." He talks to Joseph afterward and says, "Oh, so I talked with Taylor, and I think she's actually probably telling the truth. But I don't care. It doesn't matter. She still has to go." This is on day 6. On day 7, Monty tells Kyle that Mamba, which is now called Bleep, should be their priority. At this point, Kyle is Monty's closest ally. So again, while all this is happening, you had the girls trying to get Joseph on the block, but Oasis and subsequently Monty succeeded in getting Taylor on the block instead. The girls were fine with Taylor as a secondary target. Again, Mamba changes to Bleep because they weren't allowed to say Mamba or call it Mamba. And then eventually the eviction, of course, is canceled when Paloma leaves the game. So Monty and others are disappointed that they've lost Paloma, and now Taylor is still in the game. Not ideal, but overall a good week for Monty, getting into the majority alliance. Maybe just a little bit too forthcoming with some of his side information. We head into week 2, where Jasmine wins the HOH. She immediately again wants to target Taylor, but Pooch volunteers for the block as a pawn to ensure that she leaves. And the rest of Bleep, which is now called Pose Pack, and Pose Pack now includes Nicole. So let me just quickly set this up. You know about girls. You know about Oasis is basically the guys minus Terrence and Taylor, Terrence and Michael. Girls is the women minus Taylor and Nicole. In the middle of that was what became Pose Pack. It was initially Mamba and it included Paloma, Alyssa, Amira, Monty, Michael, and Kyle. It became Bleep. And then after Paloma quit or left, it became Pose Pack. And they replaced Paloma with Nicole. According to people in the house, including Kyle, Alyssa and Monty himself. It was Monty's idea to include Nicole, to pull Nicole in and bring her in as a replacement for Paloma, and that he was the one that went ahead and did it himself. He brought her in. So Pose Pack is now the thing, right? Pose Pack as a whole does not want to target Taylor, or at least the women of Pose Pack don't want to target Taylor, plus Michael, who also doesn't want to target Taylor. So Kyle and Monty are the only two left that really want to target Taylor. The women don't want to target Taylor because she is starting to talk about how she's willing to target the men. And they know about Oasis. They know that Pooch started it. And in the previous week, Monty had talked about being okay with letting Pooch go because he was too much of a wild card. So they're feeling like, let's just take out Pooch. And so Amira pitches to Jasmine that they should take out Pooch, and Pooch becomes the target with Taylor as the backup target. And they both go up on the block. So during this week, Monty is going to receive a 4 in the stock watch. And that's primarily because he was really the person that set all of this in motion. He is the reason that Pooch is being targeted. And now he doesn't want it to happen and is going to spend a lot of time this week trying to stop it from happening, wasting a lot of social capital and putting himself into a more difficult position. On day 9, he, again, was allegedly, you can see this on day 9, it was allegedly the person that pushed for Nicole to be included in Pose Pack. And when Monty is told that Pose Pack is switching the target off of Taylor and onto Pooch, he's kind of upset about it. He wants to continue to target Taylor. And if they do vote Pooch, which he doesn't want to do, he at least wants himself and Kyle to be able to vote to keep him in order to save face. This is on day 10. Again, worth noting, Kyle, still his closest ally at this point. He's arguing this for Kyle without Kyle even being a part of it. Kyle did not have any idea about casting a sympathy vote. Monty advocated for the both of them to be able to cast a sympathy vote together. So at this point, again, on day 10, Taylor starts telling the women she wants to target Monty. And Monty is going to try really hard with Kyle to convince Amira and Nicole to take out Taylor instead of Pooch. Things, though, get a little tense when ultimately the women don't budge. This is the conversation in the storage room that a lot of people were like, oh, like Monty is kind of like, what have I done by including Nicole into this alliance? Because now Nicole is not agreeing with anything that I'm saying, and it's not great. It's not great. There's a lot of tension now within Pose Pack. Monty is not feeling good about it because they're pushing Pooch and he can't stop it. The women of Pose Pack are not feeling good about Monty because he's pushing so hard against their agenda. And these cracks are deepening. So on day 12, Indy is going to propose an alliance with Monty and Joseph. She tells them that they'd better not screw her because she'll be really upset if they betray her. Monty immediately tells the rest of Pose Pack about it. Kyle is going to catch the women talking together in the HOH room. Up in the HOH room, Jasmine's the HOH, of course. There's a lot of talk up there. The old school alliance is kind of coming together at this point. Nicole is not really loyal to Pose Pack. She's working with Daniel. She's trying to break things up. She's actually trying to get the target onto Monty at this point. Kyle is getting a sense of this, and he tells Monty they need to do something about it. They are the backup alliance, and the heads of the snake are in their alliance. Monty then tries to flip the votes again against Taylor, pitching to Daniel and Terrence, but ultimately this goes nowhere on day 13. Now, he does have a long conversation with Taylor on day 15 that seems to convince him to stop targeting her. She talks about a lot of things: personal life, game life, colorism, etc. After this conversation, he feels like he might be able to have her on his side, and he instead proposes to Kyle that they pull her in instead of taking her out and use her to take the shots at Amira and the others instead of having to do it themselves. This is on day, again, 15. Now, also on day 15, Kyle is going to let Monty know about old school. Alyssa dropped the fact that Old School exists on him as well as a women's alliance. And Kyle gives Monty this information that, yes, in fact, our fears are correct. The women of our alliance are double dealing, are triple dealing, in fact. And to prove this, I've also heard, Monty, that you made some kind of final two with Amira. This is true. Monty is disappointed to learn that Amira told Alyssa about it, but he does say it wasn't really that much of a thing. It was just like a very early sort of like little thing that clearly hasn't really gone anywhere. But it does verify the information at the very least. So they get together with Michael and determine that they may need to start swinging for the fences, meaning break up the alliance. Michael suggests pulling in Brittany and Taylor. Monty agrees with that plan. He thinks that pulling in Brittany and Taylor at this point is a good idea. They will then take the shot at Amira and the rest of them. This is all, again, on day 15. So, of course, Michael had won that veto. He didn't use it. The blind side goes through and Pooch is evicted. Now, you have a couple of alliances forming. Michael, Brittany, and Taylor becomes a 3-person thing. Michael, Brittany, and Kyle also getting close together. Again, at this point, Monty is still fully on board with Kyle as his closest ally. He feels pretty good with Michael at this point as well. And that's he's got Joseph and he's got kind of like, this Oasis thing, he ultimately is going to use it's other people's plans here, but Oasis gets leaked and they use that to cover the fact that Monty voted against the guys, and so he doesn't get in trouble with Turner or Joseph, which is pretty key, of course, to his path forward. So we head into week 3. And in week 3, Turner, of course, is going to win the HOH. Turner is the bestie twist also is going to start, and Poe's pack is going to game it immediately. The pairs become Turner and Jasmine, Nicole and Taylor, Amira and Terrence, Michael, Brittany, Daniel, Kyle, Monty, Joseph, and Indy, Alyssa. Because of the bestie twist, Poe's pack is going to get a second wind. And Taylor is going to become the default target once again. She's the lowest hanging fruit. They get Jasmine to convince Turner that Taylor was behind the vote flip against Pooch, and he buys it. He decides he's going to put up Michael and Brittany in an attempt to backdoor Taylor. So Michael and Brittany go up on the block. Now, Monty this week is going to get a 6 on the stock watch. He pairs up with Joseph as somebody outside of Poe's pack for safety. That if he goes up on the block against Joseph, Joseph will leave. He'll be fine. He gets the assignment. This is on day 16. This is going to come back to bite him slightly, but it was working for now. Also on day 16, Monty is going to, again, put his doubts aside, his doubts of Poe's pack. He doesn't really like the alliance that much, but this twist is just too enticing in terms of the safety that it offers. So he puts aside his doubts and he goes back to targeting Taylor. He is going to push for the Taylor target here. It's going to be Kyle that tells Turner and Joseph with Monty there that Amira was actually the one that flipped the vote against Pooch, not Taylor, and that Amira is the one running the game. And they get all whipped up into a frenzy and they create a new alliance called the Pound. This is, of course, on day 17. So now Monty is finally officially against Poe's pack. He has broken away. The prophecy has been fulfilled. On day 18, the Daniel and Taylor confrontation happens. And afterward, the leftovers are formed. Monty's apprehension about Poe's pack, again, has finally taken action as he helps create this alliance. Of course, Michael, again, is going to win the veto. And a new plan is made with Poe's pack and the leftovers. The plan is for Amira to go up on the block instead of Taylor. She gets blindsided at the veto ceremony. And Monty is going to pretend to be upset about it. This is on day 20. Monty's plan as Amira is blindsided is to act blindsided as well and act like he's very upset about it. And he's like, oh, man, it's Pose Pack. Oh, man, why did that happen? Let me offer some theories. This is terrible. Him, along with most of the leftovers, continue to play dumb and continue to play up their Taylor hate. So they're, oh, no, we're still against Taylor. Definitely. Monty does attempt to get them to chill a little bit about Taylor, but is shot down at this point. Monty, on day 22, is going to come up with a plan. He wants to split the vote. He wants a split vote because he wants to cause confusion. He says, have you seen season 20? Because what would be very fun is if we had a split vote and we caused a bunch of chaos and nobody knew who they could trust. Wouldn't it be great? We could play all sides. It would be all kinds of fun, interesting stuff. So Monty is a big advocate for the split vote plan, which, of course, ultimately goes through. They split the vote and blindside Amira and the rest of the house. Joseph and Monty are also going to talk Terrence last minute into choosing their bestie group when Amira is evicted and he has to choose somebody to join. This is on day 23. So again, Amira is blindsided. Terrence is going to join Monty and Joseph's bestie group. Solid work all around this week from Monty. Getting into a new majority alliance that is more beneficial to his game than the previous one. Helping orchestrate the split vote, successfully hiding his involvement in the blind side, convincing Joseph to join, or convincing Terrence to join, helping convince Terrence to join his bestie group. Lots of good things happening for Monty here. Pose Pack is dead. The Pound and the leftovers are in. And on the other side of things, Michael and Brittany are continuing to make alliances with themselves and Taylor, different variations of that alliance. We head into week 4, where Monty wins his first HOH. He is going to nominate Alyssa and Indy with the fake story that he still intends to backdoor Taylor, when in reality, he plans to send out Nicole, of course. So Monty is going to get a 7 in the stock watch this week. It's starting to feel better that he's now solidly in an alliance and things are working out for the most part for him here. His hard work is paid off. Terrence has joined his bestie group, and he wins this HOH. He's going to use Joseph's plan of having Taylor out Pose Pack as an excuse for his vote. So Joseph came up with this plan that the reason that Amira left is that Taylor overheard Kyle talking about Pose Pack to Amira, and now Pose Pack is exposed, and thus we had to vote out Amira. He tells that story. Now, things were going well in week 3. In week 4, his story doesn't land as well. Alyssa in particular is very upset with him because he directly lied to her right before the vote. And what I mean by this is that she asked him straight up right before the vote, are you voting out Amira? And he said no. He was, of course, in an alliance with Alyssa prior to this in Pose Pack. His relationship with Alyssa is never going to really recover from this point, nor does he really ever make much of an attempt to do so. So there's a little bit of a schism here. Joseph is going to want Taylor and Nicole on the block initially, but Monty talks to Kyle, Michael, and Brittany, who all agree that Joseph is being a bit much right now. Being a bit much, and maybe they should let Taylor make the call. They ask Taylor, and Taylor says she would prefer Alyssa and Indy go up initially. Monty is down for that, so the plan is again to claim that he is going to backdoor Taylor. Monty wants Alyssa to be the target if the veto isn't used somehow, and this is all on day 23. On day 24, he lets Indy know that she's going to go up on the block. She's very upset about it. She says, I would never do this to you. And on day 24, he goes ahead and nominates Alyssa and Indy, who Alyssa, of course, again, now still continuing to be like, Monty sucks. Now, after Daniel and Kyle win the veto, Taylor is going to pitch that they need to take out Alyssa instead of Nicole because Michael and Brittany stay safe because of the bestie twist. And there's a bunch of details that we don't need to get into. for why, but Monty thinks it's more important to take out Nicole. He thinks that is the more important play at this point. That's on day 25. The next day, that was day 25 or 24. I think it was day 25. Yes, that was day 25. The next day, Michael pitches that if the rule is that the surviving bestie has to break up the 3-person group, Taylor would have to pick Terrence, leaving Monty and Joseph vulnerable again. Again, lots of weird details about the bestie twist, but ultimately, Michael makes the pitch that it actually benefits Monty due to the twist if they vote out Alyssa. And this argument sways Monty. They agree to evict Alyssa. They just need to get Daniel to not use the veto. They tell Kyle about it, who ultimately tries to argue against it, or who tries to argue against it, but ultimately agrees with the plan. These things are happening days 25 and 26. Monty tells Daniel that he shouldn't use the veto. So the plan comes into place, right? The plan is we need to convince Daniel to not use the veto so that we can keep Alyssa and Indy on the block, and we can vote out Alyssa instead of Nicole. In order to do that, they need to convince Daniel to not use the veto because he had been planning to use the veto with the intention of getting Nicole and Taylor on the block because he wanted Taylor out. Now, what they didn't really know is that he didn't really want to use the veto in the first place because he was worried that Nicole might be voted out. So when Monty tells Daniel, hey, you shouldn't use the veto, I'm concerned that Nicole might be voted out, Daniel is like, wait a minute. That's what I was thinking. Now I'm concerned. Monty, who has had a lot of one-on-one conversations with the house, many of the people in the house do not trust Daniel and Nicole. In particular, Jasmine, Indy, Alyssa, Terrence, they've all told Monty they don't trust Nicole and Daniel. Monty's going to use that information here. He's going to throw them all under the bus, and he's going to say, I think that Alyssa, Jasmine, Indy, I think they're going to vote you out, Nicole. Now, of course, this is the lie, right? Monty is giving Daniel and Nicole information that is ultimately not true. That is ultimately true, but the details are wrong. Ultimately, Nicole will be voted out if you use the veto, but he's telling them that the side of the house that won't vote Nicole out will vote Nicole out. Daniel doesn't believe him. Daniel tells Kyle that Monty is trying to BS him. He says he must not think that I have the votes to keep Taylor. Kyle ends up reneging on his agreement and does not try to convince Daniel to use the veto, to not use the veto. In fact, he tries to convince Daniel to use the veto. Kyle ends up telling Monty that Daniel still wants to use the veto. He doesn't believe you, Monty. He thinks that you're lying and he wants to use the veto. And Monty replies with, I
mean, they're lost.
All right. So Daniel does, in fact, use the veto. Monty puts up Taylor and Nicole. This all happens on day 27. Now, this is actually a bit of a sticking point in Monty's game because he lands himself in a bunch of trouble. He's ratted out Jasmine, Indy, and Alyssa, and it's become clear at this point that he is not working with them. There's a bunch of controversy over the fact that he has now outed their position against Nicole and Daniel. Nicole and Daniel go to Indy, Alyssa, and Jasmine and say, hey, Monty told us that you wouldn't vote for Nicole to stay. They said that you don't trust us. If he said that you don't trust us, how weird is that? And they go to Monty and they're like, Monty, what the hell? Why would you tell them that? And Monty gets into a bunch of trouble. And over the courses of days 27 and 28, Monty becomes the figurehead for the other side. And they all start talking about targeting him. Michael is going to encourage this as well because, again, the bestie twist was such that Michael and Brittany would have been in trouble if him and Brittany were targeted. And so he's encouraging the other side to target Monty, who is now safe because Terrence is in his bestie group. So Kyle and Turner also did not like that they were being pushed into something they didn't like, and they create a final two. They didn't like the Alyssa stuff. They didn't want Alyssa to go. Kyle also starts making plans outside of Monty and the pound with Michael. This is a disastrous couple of days for Monty's game overall. Between losing all trust he had in the other side of the house, he is not going to work to rebuild that trust until a few weeks later at best. And in addition to that, he has officially lost Kyle, who was his closest ally until this point. And Kyle's going to start moving in other directions here. Now, Kyle tries to let Monty know that Jasmine, Alyssa, Indy, and Terrence all don't trust him anymore, but Monty does not believe him on day 29. Later in the day, though, when Monty goes to Terrence and tells him, hey, I think I want Nicole out, Terrence agrees to his face and then goes behind his back and tries to campaign to keep Nicole. This comes back to Monty, and he's very disappointed in Terrence. He then is going to realize that Kyle was probably telling the truth, and Terrence is working with Jasmine, Indy, and Alyssa, and not with him. Also on day 29, Daniel is going to find out that Nicole is leaving, and he says, just give Monty the check already.
Oh, my God. Just end the season already.
So Nicole is going to be voted out, and Taylor is going to join Alyssa and Indy's bestie group. So Kyle and Turner make a final two this week. The Kyle, Turner, Brittany, Michael, Taylor, Alyssa crew is going to kind of loosely form. Alyssa, Jasmine, and Indy become a thing, and then Terrence and Daniel become a bit of a pair here in this week. While Monty really kind of like gets put up on a stage, on a pedestal, and they're just kind of like, he is the guy. Everyone is targeting Monty. And now instead of pretending that Taylor is the target, Monty is the new fake target for the leftovers, which immediately happens here. In week 5, Michael wins the HOH, and his plan is to put Monty, Joseph, and Terrence on the block and pretend that he's going after Monty. The plan is that if they come down, he'll backdoor Daniel, and if they don't, they'll take out Terrence, or maybe even Monty. Now, this is the week that Kyle pitches to Michael that he could see a Cookout 2.0 forming. So we'll get into that. Monty is going to get a 6 in the stock watch this week. Some damage from his previous HOH reign, which did not go quite as well for him. You'll notice that a lot of the stock watch ratings sometimes will kind of like be reflections on the effects of the previous week. And I think this is happening here with Monty, where the week before he had done well. That reflects in his 7 by the time he is rated the next week. And then he does not as well here on his HOH week. And that reflects a little bit here in this week. Of course, also this week, he does a couple of silly things that I think impacted his rating. Michael is going to consider Terrence or Monty as a backup target to Daniel. And Monty wants Alyssa to be the backup target here on day 30. Kyle pitches to Michael that he could see a Cookout 2.0 forming. And this is because, he says, Monty has been so adamant about feeling like Jasmine, Indy, and Terrence are so loyal to him. He says they all share a common purpose. After being told numerous times by Michael and Brittany that he's wrong, even Alyssa tells Kyle that most of those people that he's talking about, Indy, Jasmine, Terrence, they're all wanting Monty out, Kyle. They want him gone at this point in the game. She does not see them working together. He still does not agree. Kyle continues to push this narrative. This is day 30 and 32. Monty agrees that it makes sense for his group to go on the block on day 30, essentially giving the go-ahead to put him up on the block. And Michael tells the cameras that Monty is the biggest threat to win the game, and that he wouldn't mind if Monty left this week. Meanwhile, Monty is going to pitch to Turner and Kyle that Michael is the biggest threat in the game and should be the first person to go from the leftovers. This happens on day 31. Very funny that it happens on the same day. So Monty on day 31 is nominated with Joseph and Terrence. Jasmine, Alyssa, Indy, Terrence, and Daniel all want him out. The second he goes up on the block, they all convene. They all say, we want this guy gone. Basically, everyone outside of the leftovers is hoping that Monty will go. Terrence decides, in order to make that happen, I'm going to throw this veto to ensure that he stays on the block. Michael, Brittany, and Taylor discuss taking the shot at Monty. If not this week, hopefully soon. Things are looking a little shaky here for Monty at this point. Could be a little dangerous. So they get to the veto competition where Terrence throws the veto to Michael. And in a funny way, this ends up working out because, again, Michael was talking about potentially targeting Monty because of the notion that Monty potentially had Jasmine, Indy, Alyssa, Terrence, because he kept talking about how he had those people. But when Terrence throws the veto to Michael and says, hey, you got to do what you got to do, or whatever he said, Michael realizes that Terrence and the rest of the house want Monty gone. In fact, they came up to his HOH room one by one after he won the veto to say, hey, you should take out Monty. With this knowledge, Michael tells Monty that Terrence wanted him out so bad that he threw the veto competition, and every single person on the other side is coming up one by one to tell him that they want Monty to go. Monty is very disappointed by this news. He's been this is important, I think, to recognize about Monty. He wanted to play the Big Brother 20 game. He wanted to play both sides. He wanted to cause chaos. He wanted to be the Joseph of the house at this point, right? And when he finds out that he's not succeeding, that the other side doesn't trust him and that they want him out, he's very upset and disappointed about it. And he says, all right, well, I guess it's time to play then. And he's kind of going to sit out of a lot of strategy talks for a little while, and basically not really engage with the other side as much, at least from this point forward. So this happens on day 32. Michael no longer feels like, so with all of this in mind, Michael now no longer feels like he needs to take the shot at Monty because the entire rest of the house wants him gone. And Monty now knows that he can't trust the other side. So he successfully severed those ties, and Monty is not as much of a threat as he thought. This, again, day 32. On day 34, Michael is going to use the veto and put Daniel and Kyle on the block. The rest of the week goes fairly smoothly from here. Kyle tells the cameras that he thinks he loses to Monty in the final two on day 34. Again, seen as a jury threat, not surprising. Monty is unsuccessfully going to try to prevent Joseph from playing both sides on day 34 as well. This is going to be a big sticking point for Monty for a little while, is that Monty wants Joseph to stop playing both sides. As soon as Monty realizes that he is not able to play both sides, and this is not a criticism, this is what he should be doing. But when Monty realizes that the other side doesn't trust him and that they do trust Joseph, Monty starts pitching, wait, why do we even need to play both sides? Why we should just open up about our alliance and make it really straightforward and play by the book. Essentially, we don't need to be doing both sides, causing chaos. Like, that's dumb. We should just be open about it. And this is, of course, because he no longer is in that position, and Joseph is in that position instead. He's going to try to push this for a little while. Doesn't ever really go anywhere, though. Michael and Brittany decide that Joseph is a bigger threat to them than Monty because of a new showmance brewing. Joseph and Taylor are getting closer over the course of this week, and this makes Michael and Brittany worried that between the other side of the house all wanting Monty gone and the fact that Joseph now seems to be trusted by the other side and is getting closer to Taylor, they decide that they want to shift their primary target within the leftovers from Monty to Joseph. And this is huge for Monty. This is the biggest thing that happened for him in this portion of the game. Very big for him that Joseph rises as a bigger target in the house over him, or at least for Michael and Brittany. So, of course, Daniel's going to be voted out. The bestie twist is going to end. Joseph and Taylor, again, are getting closer. And the five swatters also comes into play here once toward the end of the week. We head into week 6 where Taylor wins the HOH. Monty is again going to be pushing a lot like, hey, five swatters got to go. We got to just open up about our alliance. Taylor's target is Terrence. Monty's preferred target at this point is Indy. But that's going to change. She doesn't really know how she wants to get to Terrence being targeted. And if the Alliance decides they want to do something else, she's fine with that. So she goes ahead and nominates Terrence and Indy, but not before doing some other things. Monty's going to get a 7 in the stock watch this week. Again, Michael and Brittany shifting their target from Monty to Joseph is huge for him, and that's going to be reflected in his rating this week. In addition to the fact that that divide is only going to deepen over the course of the week, as we'll talk about in just a second. So Taylor is going to pretend that she wants to backdoor Monty. Again, he's the fake backdoor target because the rest of the house wants him gone. He thinks that Indy should be the target, and Taylor's going to go as far as to suggest that Monty go up as a pawn. But Turner and himself, they say that's a bad idea. You shouldn't do that. And so she backs down from that idea and ends up with Terrence and Indy. This is on day 37. After Kyle wins the veto on day 39, Brittany is going to push for Alyssa to be the target, and Monty is going to jump on that idea. Alyssa? That actually makes some sense. Worth noting that it is Brittany that brings this up. Really just they're going to use this to stoke the flames, as I say, of the leftovers civil war. Kyle is going to get a heads up though that the target is now Alyssa and is not okay with it. He asks Monty, who tells him he's essentially neutral on the subject. But after a lot of back and forth, Monty does end up arguing against Kyle and Alyssa. Kyle is going to be set pretty firmly against Monty, Joseph, and Taylor here on day 40 after all of the runaround. Michael and Brittany have successfully sort of pitted the two sides against each other. Even though they were pretty obviously playing the middle, the tension still exists, and the rift between Kyle and Monty has been completely just like successful. I mean, the connection between them has been severed. Taylor's going to tell Joseph that she feels least close to Monty within the alliance, and at this point, because of all of the tension and the fact that Kyle's basically out for her, she wants to rectify that. This is on day 42. Indy's then going to be voted out. Kyle doesn't use the veto. Indy's going to be voted out. She becomes the first jury member. The Five Swatters is exposed and destroyed. In her exit interviews, Indy said that Monty was a good friend and that he was loyal. Perhaps forgetting that he did put her on the block. So we'll see. We head into week 7, where Michael and Terrence are both going to win the HOH. And the house splits, with Michael, Jasmine, Brittany, Taylor, and Monty going inside, Terrence, Turner, Alyssa, Joseph, and Kyle going outside. Now, inside, Michael is going to target Jasmine. He nominates her and Monty. Brittany wins the veto. They don't use it. They send Jasmine out. It's pretty straightforward here on the inside. But let's talk a little bit about what Monty is doing inside. He's going to get a 5 in the stock watch, which I think is primarily due to his potential to leave and the fact that he keeps talking about targeting Michael. But this actually was a pretty good week for him. Monty is picked to be inside because Michael is hoping to target Joseph first and foremost. And he wants Monty on his side of the house as a backup. Monty is going to agree to go on the block next to Jasmine. He's fine with this. He doesn't mind. He knows that it's what has to happen. These events, of course, happen on day 44 and 45. Monty is going to work on Michael a lot this week. He's going to convince him that he's on board with him, that he's on his side, and that he won't target him. And at the same time, he's approaching Taylor about taking a shot at Michael when they get to the final 5. He does that so many times that it's many days 45, 46, 47, and 48. He's having these conversations with both Michael and Taylor, going back and forth, convincing Michael that he's chill and going to Taylor and saying, hey, we got to take that shot at Michael at 5. Michael tells the cameras he does love Monty as a person on day 47. He bonds more with Taylor, apologizing for what happened with Paloma on day 48. And then on day 50, just before Jasmine leaves, Monty has a good talk with her about her game, in contrast with how poorly Brittany handled Jasmine's exit. In her exit interviews, Jasmine described Monty as a chicken pot pie. Hard on the outside, but she thinks there's a soft spot in him. In another interview, she called him close to the chest. Doesn't give much. This makes a lot of sense for Jasmine, right? Indy said Monty's a good friend. She did feel like she had a relationship with Monty, even though it was kind of severed by the time that she left. For Jasmine, though, she kind of had a relationship a little bit with Monty early on. Then he kind of shut himself off from the other side of the house for a while. So she really looks at him as somebody that was very like closed off, didn't really talk to people that much. But by the time she left, she had like a good heart to heart with him, and felt like maybe he's got, a good heart on the inside. Now, while this is all happening, something occurs that is not quite as great for Monty's game. In fact, it's potentially devastating. He's putting in some good work here on the inside, but outside, Michael's plan is coming into place, and it's not working out super well for Monty in particular. Terrence intends to target Joseph by putting him up next to Kyle. Kyle then outs the leftovers and gets Terrence to put up Turner next to Joseph instead. Terrence wins the veto, uses it on Turner, putting Kyle on the block after the wall yeller situation. And in the end, they still vote out Joseph and create a new alliance together called the After Party. It's time to go to war, they say. Now, initially, they had been targeting Monty, but after Joseph tells them that Taylor has a final 3 with Michael and Brittany, Kyle is going to realize, wait a minute, Michael is my real threat. Why not Monty? Why am I going after Monty when Michael is the person that is more threatening to my game? And just like that, we're going to head into week 8, where Turner wins the HOH as the house reunites. He quickly is going to promise everybody safety, which is, how Turner's going to operate on this one. And he's convinced by Monty initially to stick with the leftovers instead of going with the after party, but Kyle's going to get him back on track. So let's talk about Monty this week. He's going to get a 7 in the stock watch. And Kyle, again, wants Turner to target Michael because of that information that Joseph gave them. He wants to see if they can manipulate Monty into joining their side while they take a shot at Michael, then intends to turn around and take out Monty soon after. So that's Kyle's plan. And it's working because Monty talks to Turner and immediately throws the entire inside of the house under the bus, saying that they were planning to target Kyle and Turner, and that he is still on board with the pound. And he tells Turner that he thinks the best move is to take out Terrence. Now, initially, this seems to work. But when Turner tells Kyle about it, Kyle gets his head straight and convinces him that he needs to nominate Taylor and Brittany with the intention of backdooring Michael, which he, of course, is going to do. When Turner comes back to Monty with this plan the following day, Monty agrees to it, says he's on board to target Michael, and he is going to support the plan. So, this happens on day 51 and 52. On day 52, Monty is also going to learn about the after party and the fact that Kyle is the one that told them about the leftovers. They lock in Monty as an extra number, sort of a fake member of the after party. Again, though, he is the backup target this week and ultimately is going to be targeted soon, even if they do manage to land the shot on Michael. So Taylor is going to put in some really good work with Alyssa, which again prompts this conversation between her and Kyle. They agree that they want Monty to leave over Taylor if Michael wins the veto. He is the backup target. This happens on day 53. They talk about how quickly Monty threw his side of the house under the bus and how he is not a trustworthy player. And then Michael goes ahead and wins that veto on day 53, which is going to get Kyle to gather Terrence and Alyssa. They're both on board with putting up Monty and taking Monty out. And at first, this seems like it's what's going to happen, right? Like Monty, this is time. This is the time. This is the demise of Monty's game is that He lost Joseph. He's lost Kyle. And he is now going to go out because Michael won this veto. But before that can happen, Michael and Brittany are going to bring Monty and Taylor into the Have Not room and tell them about Kyle's Cookout 2.0 comments, theories, actions. They then are going to bring the rest of the house into it, including Turner, who reluctantly is going to agree to take out Kyle this week instead of Monty. This happens on day 54. Now, when Monty talks to Turner about the situation, Monty tells Turner, I don't blame you for any of this. I don't think you were involved in any way. Basically gives him the full absolution here, which Turner very much appreciates. Turner says that he has nothing left in the game but Monty, and they make a final 2. This happens on day 54. Monty spends a lot of time talking with Terrence and Taylor about the situation over the course of the rest of the week. He feels Taylor should be more upset about it, and he's annoyed that she's not targeting Michael with him. Over the course of these 3 days, though, day 55, 56, and 57 days, he's going to bond with Terrence, really. It's a bonding experience for him and Terrence over the course of these 3 days. They had never really seen eye to eye. Monty had thought he was with Terrence before, but Terrence consistently chose Daniel over him. But now that Daniel is gone and they have this shared sort of experience, they are going to bond a bit. So he's going to have a long conversation with Kyle about the situation on day 56. And also on day 56, he's going to express that he has an issue, and many other days, but starting day 56, he has an issue with the timing of the reveal from Michael and Brittany. So, of course, Kyle is going to be evicted this week, and Monty moves forward with a final 2 with Turner. The after party is dead, and he's going to hold on as well to his insider alliance of 4 with Michael, Brittany, and Taylor. So we head into week 9. We're really cooking here. Week 9. In week 9, of course, Michael is going to win the HOH. His plan is to target Terrence. And so he nominates Terrence and Alyssa. This is a very bad move. Monty's going to get a 6 on the stock watch this week. Monty is called boring by Zingbot, and he's frustrated that Michael keeps winning. Michael does consider targeting Monty because he knows that he's coming for him at this point. Monty has told Taylor, and Taylor has told Brittany, and Brittany has told Michael. Monty is coming for you. But after the events of the previous week, Michael does not feel comfortable going back on his word to Turner or to Monty. And so he instead is going to decide he wants to target Terrence. He also notes that he feels that he wants to take away Terrence as an option for anybody in the final 2. So this happens on day 58. Also on day 58, Monty and Turner are going to agree that they're going to take that shot at Michael next week if they get it. On day 60, Michael wins the veto and doesn't intend to use it. Monty is again annoyed that Michael has beaten him in something. He says, just put a ball in my hand. I'll beat him with a ball in my hand. This is when Turner approaches Monty about a new plan. He wants to work with Michael. The reason why is that Brittany came to him and told him that the women are working together. And if the women are working together and they can't beat Michael, they should just join Michael, because if they take Michael out next, the women are going to target them, and then the women are going to win the game and not the bros like it should be. Okay, I added a little bit of extra spice on that one. I'm sorry. He doesn't want the women to take them out, says Turner. Monty is a little bit reluctant at first, but eventually was like, you know what? If those women are working together, yeah, you're right. We need to work with Michael. And they approach Michael and make a gentleman's agreement where they decide that they want to work with Michael and target Taylor. Monty, both privately with Turner and publicly with Michael, agrees that Taylor should go. They make, again, a gentleman's agreement. This happens on day 61 and 62. Monty tells Turner that he feels good about the deal with Michael and that he wants to stick with it. He wants to test the waters with Taylor, though, to see if she's really in with the women, because he might want to target Alyssa instead of Taylor. This happens on day 62. For anyone that ever tries to say that Monty and Turner were not on board with the plan to keep Michael and that it was always fake, watch day 62. Watch day 61. They were on board with it. There's no reason for Monty to lie to Turner in this conversation when they had previously agreed they were willing to target Michael. And then all of a sudden, after this new logic pops up, they decide they don't want to target Michael. Monty has no reason to not tell Turner that he doesn't want to target, or that he does want to target Michael at this point in the game. He has agreed and seems to actually be genuinely on board with not targeting Michael. Does not mean that he would not have changed his mind eventually anyway. But at this time, he has decided that he will not take the shot at Michael. They specifically say, even if he does lose that competition, they don't want to take the shot at Michael yet. They're worried that if they do, they become the next big target for the women who they think are working together. Now, this changes a little bit when Monty talks to Taylor, and she tells him about the women's alliance pitch from Alyssa. She does so mostly unprompted. He feels much better about her after this, and still does not go back on the deal with Michael with Turner. He still wants to honor the deal with Turner, but he feels good enough about Taylor that he wants to target Alyssa now. And he would like for Turner to also target Alyssa over Taylor, but Turner says, nah, I'd prefer to still target Taylor. Target Alyssa over Taylor, but Turner would still prefer to target Taylor over Alyssa. They both agree that they want to target separate people, essentially, but they both still agree that they want to keep Michael. So Taylor is going to ask Monty on day 62 a little bit later that if he's still down to target Michael. And after literally at least 7 separate days in the last 2 weeks where Monty has approached Taylor about targeting Michael and how they need to do it under every and any circumstance. And she said, you're willing to do it? And he said, yes. On day 62, when she approaches him about it, Monty says, I've been thinking about the timing, he says. I'm not sure when the right time would be. Monty suggests on day 62, we should wait a week, I think. Let Michael win HOH again and then take the shot. Don't you think, Taylor? Taylor is like, maybe. Or we could take a shot sooner. Maybe. Terrence is going to pitch to Monty and seemingly flips him for the week's vote. Seemingly gets Monty to decide that he would prefer to take out Alyssa this week. I mean, hey, if there's a women's alliance, maybe we should just go ahead and take Alyssa out anyway. Plus, that bonding that he's done with Terrence has, paid off, and he seems to be on board with Terrence's pitch. But when he goes to Taylor about it, she shuts it down. He ends up telling Terrence that Taylor is the reason that he can't stay. Taylor is blocking him from staying. This happens on day 63. Now, on day 64, Taylor approaches Monty again about targeting Michael next. Monty again pushes back a little bit in comparison to the conversations that he had before. He says, I see what you're saying, but I wouldn't want to be the target the following week. She says, who would target you? I wouldn't target you. Everyone knows that this would happen. In my opinion, this is when the light bulb went off in Monty's head, where he realized, wait a minute, Taylor clearly is not working with the women. She told me willingly. Turner at this point has talked to Alyssa and ratted Brittany out for ratting the women's alliance out. So Alyssa's not pro Brittany. Alyssa's not with the women. If the women aren't a thing, then I don't need to be worried about retaliation after targeting Michael next week. All right. Taylor is also going to approach Turner about it. After this, Monty goes to Turner and tells him, hey, we should go back on our deal with Michael. If we get the opportunity to take a shot, we should take it. Turner is not really sure, but ultimately agrees to the idea. Again, this is all on day 64. In exit interviews, Terrence says that Monty played a clean game. He says that Monty played a clean game. I also forgot to mention that Kyle didn't really give much in exit interviews in the way of information, although in the jury segment last night, both Kyle and Terrence seemed pretty pro Monty, which was not surprising. In Joseph's exit interview, he called Monty his brother, which also kind of coincides with what we've seen in in jury segments. All mostly positive for Monty. There's zero negative Monty content in exit interviews, except for, I imagine, upcoming Brittany exit interviews. So we head into the double eviction, where Turner wins the HOH, Monty wins the veto, and though it takes some convincing, Monty gets Turner to take a shot at Michael. In exit interviews, Michael says that Monty is diplomatic, and that he gives Monty and Turner more credit for evicting him than Taylor. Ultimately, we see that Turner does not even take credit for the move against Michael, and so he's going to give the bulk of that to Monty. Worth noting. We head into week 10, where Monty wins his second HOH. He wants either Brittany or Alyssa out. Initially, it seems like he's maybe leaning toward Alyssa. He's going to get a 7 in the stock watch, but he's going to tell every person something different. He's going to tell both Alyssa and Brittany that they need to go on the block so that he can evict the other. He tells Turner and Taylor that if they win the veto and force the other one on the block, he'll back the play. This all happens on day 65. Monty does seem to start to lean toward wanting to evict Brittany. He tells Taylor that it's getting harder and harder to justify keeping her after all of the nonsense that she's doing. But ultimately, she wins the veto. This happens on day 66 and 67. On day 67, Taylor is going to, again, unsuccessfully, because she tried initially, she's going to unsuccessfully try to convince Monty to take a shot at Turner. And he is not going to go for it. He's going to put Taylor on the block instead, trusting that Turner will vote the way that he wants him to, which he, of course, does. Monty is also going to help facilitate a final 3 between Taylor, Turner, and himself that Taylor calls the Girls Guys on day 67. Brittany makes a pitch to Monty and on day 68, and in response, he tells her all of the things that he's been holding back. And says there's no repairing things between them, and it's basically all her fault. This is not a great move. Monty is sort of he's feeling very confident at this point in the game, and he is going to really set Brittany against him. Definitely lose her jury vote, at least at this point, as well as set her against him at the final 4 if she wins that veto, which, boy, it was close. Very nearly cost himself the game with this maneuver, in my opinion. This happens on day 68. On days 69, 70, and 71, Monty is going to spend the rest of this week essentially bonding, I would say, with Taylor. Okay. In her exit interviews, when Alyssa is eventually evicted by Turner, she says that she thinks Monty is playing the best game. She also said she was rooting for a woman to win. Which one? Who knows? Given the jury segment last night, probably leaning toward the Monty side of things, especially given that Kyle is very pro Monty. I would imagine that Alyssa may end up moving in that direction, although we can't be sure. So we head into week 11. Week 11, where Monty is going to get a 7 in the stock watch once again. Taylor's going to win the HOH. She wants to take out Turner, but Monty is going to win the veto and decide that he would rather go to the final 3 with Turner and Taylor, feeling that both would take him and he can beat them both in the final 2. He tells Taylor that he thinks he has a better chance of beating her and offers no promises to Turner. Really feels as though he is going to take Taylor to the final 2 if he wins that final 3 HOH. He tells Brittany he's played a clean game, which she takes offense to. And he tells Turner about his relationship with Taylor. He then is going to evict Brittany, and Turner is going to win part 1 of the final 3 HOH and start talking about how Monty is beloved by the jury. We'll see what happens here. All right. That was the week by week. I promise you, I do these game recaps. I'm going to give you my summary. I'm going to give you the summary of events that I just went through, like a very detailed account. And then I'm going to give you my sort of interpretation, my sort of narrative of Monty through the game. Basically, I go from like as factual as I can through the game to a more personalized summary to my thoughts. So we're getting more and more opinion as we go down. You might be surprised that this, I'm a little bit surprised that this is so far a little bit shorter than Taylor's. I promise you that is not because I have intentionally put more Taylor stuff in here. Genuinely, Monty, I think, has played a good game. I do. I think a better strategic and competitive game than Taylor. Socially, he is very good. I'm not sure that I would say necessarily that it's better than Taylor, depending on where things go here. But ultimately, in terms of like actual things that he was doing, there are fewer things. He was less involved in the game overall. And that's in large part due to the fact that he sat a good portion of the middle game out. After he got caught with the other side, he kind of like took a break from the game. That's kind of, I think, why we're at where we're at here. So let me talk about Monty. He had an average rating of 6 in the stock watch. It might surprise you or interest you to find out he actually had the exact same average rating as Taylor. Average them together, it was like a 6.18 or something. Both of them exactly the same average rating over the course of the entire season. If Monty wins, he'll be the winner who has seen the least amount of Big Brother prior to winning since Hayden Moss, which is true of all 3 of these winners, actually. And that's pretty much it. I couldn't really find any other interesting sort of stats firsts for Monty here. And that's because he is kind of pretty typical at this point of the archetypal winner. Of course, would be the second black man to win the game. But Monty came into the game bonding quickly with Kyle and wanting to work with other strong players. He also, of course, bonds with Joseph, but is definitely much more strategically working with Kyle throughout the game. In fact, as you may have noticed through that game recap, Monty had very little strategic connection to Joseph, very few strategic conversations with Joseph. He had most of his strategic conversations with Kyle throughout the game. So he came into the game quickly. He wanted to bond with he wanted to work with the stronger players, and he does so. He gets with Kyle, Joseph. He works with Michael for a while. He works with Turner pretty closely. That's sort of where Monty is standing here. He quickly has both the men and the women vying to work with him, but he prioritizes the Mamba bleep pose pack of it all. He's always had a little bit of an issue, though, with oversharing his game secrets. So when he informs the pose pack, what will eventually become the pose pack, about Oasis, it causes the two sides of his alliance to clash a lot sooner than they should in week 2. Monty, the guy who is continuing to say to Turner, like, hey, like oversharing about his relationship with Taylor to Turner, oversharing with Taylor about how he thinks he can beat her. I would say definitely one of his flaws in the game is sharing information that he doesn't have to. Pooch is targeted in week 2, and I do definitely blame Monty for this. And Monty spends a lot of time trying to prevent the move from going through. He ultimately fails, and the effort causes a schism in the majority that is about to come to a head when the bestie twist nearly halts it. In week 3, he is briefly going to go back to post-pack until Kyle spurns him into action to join an alliance that's more beneficial to them. They create the Pound and the Leftovers together. From there, Monty attempts to play this Big Brother 20 style chaos game, but that doesn't last very long because he wins HOH in week 4. Week 4 is a huge turning point in Monty's game. He's going to win HOH and continue to try to play both sides, but very quickly gets caught. After being convinced to target Alyssa instead of Nicole, he makes a play to convince Daniel to not use the veto by ratting out Terrence, Jasmine, Indy, and Alyssa, which firmly places him in the crosshairs of the other side of the house when that gets exposed. And that crosshair, it never leaves him. The other side of the house never trusts him again and continues to target him until every single one of them is gone from the house. After week 4, this fake target goes from Taylor to Monty. Michael then wins HOH in week 5 and misses his first of what will be 3 shots that he could have taken at Monty. Mostly because he already saw that so many other people were targeting Monty. Kyle starts pitching his Cookout 2.0 theories, and unbeknownst to Monty, he has lost his closest ally to racist paranoia. This would be the lowest point in Monty's game, if not for a huge break for him happening when Joseph and Taylor start publicly getting close. Michael, Brittany, and Kyle start shifting their crosshairs from Monty to Joseph. In week 6, Taylor wins HOH, and the tension between the two sides of the alliance deepens as they try to get Kyle to evict Alyssa. Monty continues to mostly benefit from this as Joseph is the point person for all of the heat. But in general, Monty is continuing to sort of like let all of this happen. In week 7, Monty is chosen to be inside by Michael as his backup target because his primary target has been sent outside, Joseph, to be evicted by Terrence. Monty doesn't waste this opportunity though. And he starts playing some of the best Big Brother I think he displays all season long. He bonds with Michael really well. Monty has charm when he wants to use it, and he lays it on with Michael this week. He makes the 4 in the house feel very comfortable and does some good jury management with Jasmine to boot. He's a little sloppy, though. He does still talk often with both Taylor and Brittany about targeting Michael. But while Michael is HOH and he's on the block. But overall, this is a good week for Monty in the house. But that's in the house. Outside, things are going very bad. In fact, they're pretty devastating for Monty because Joseph is being targeted and Monty is the primary target for all 4 of the other outsiders. That is until Joseph leaks that Taylor has a final 3 with Michael and Brittany. And Kyle realizes that Michael is his true threat. Even so, Monty is still one of the top 2 targets and in real danger in the following week. But Joseph revealing that information about Taylor, Michael, and Brittany is huge for Monty's game. In week 8, the house reunites. Turner wins HOH, and Monty again is going to do some good work to convince Turner that he's with him and that he shouldn't be targeted. Ultimately, though, Kyle is going to outmaneuver him here, and Kyle has the stronger hold on Turner and gets Turner to target Michael with Monty as a backup target. When Michael wins the veto, the game is up for Monty. Kyle has him dead to rights. He's prepared to throw him under the bus for ratting out the insiders so quickly. But that's when Kyle gets sideswiped by Michael, dropping his Cookout 2.0 knowledge, convincing Turner to evict Kyle instead of Monty. It cannot be understated how huge this was for Monty, though I think not unfairly. Because it's really the very thing that sparked the events that put him in the firing line ultimately came back around to save him once he was there, right? The fact that Kyle had these suspicions about Monty, Cookout 2.0 theories, started to act on them and actively turned on Monty, eventually came to threaten Monty's game. He was about to leave. And then that getting exposed then saved Monty. I'd call that a wash personally. I don't think that you could say that Monty's game should be discredited for being saved by this moment because his game was only in danger because of the thing that was exposed. That's what I'm trying to say. And Monty, he doesn't waste this opportunity. He picks up a rudderless Turner in a final 2 and moves forward in one of the best positions in the game. All he has to do now is beat Michael. Michael, though, of course, wins the HOH and the veto in week 9, and he's going to avoid taking the shot at Monty for his 3rd and final time. He doesn't want to go back on his word after the events of the prior week. Again, I want to note, Michael exposing Kyle, so huge for Monty's game in that week at the very least. And then Monty is able to really take advantage of the situation by picking up Turner and helping. And the situation also helps prevent Michael from taking the shot that he should at either Turner or Monty. Monty and Turner do, though, decide that they want to start working with Michael this week, only to come back around on realizing that he'll need to target him if he has the chance by the end of the week. So in the double eviction, Turner and Monty win HOH and veto, and they send Michael out. Monty then wins HOH in week 10, cementing his place in the final 4, where he is going to successfully maintain Turner's obedience and get Alyssa out. But he does unnecessarily piss off Brittany in the process, which very nearly costs him the whole game, as she came very close to winning the final 4 veto. And if she had, I do believe she would have evicted Monty, primarily because of this conversation that he has with Brittany. Monty then wins the final 4 veto and can't be swayed to evict Turner. He heads into the final 3 with Taylor and Turner, expecting both of them to take him to the final 2 and that he will be able to beat both of them in the final 2. Now, is this correct? I just talked about how Turner is saying that Monty is beloved by the jury after beating both Monty and Taylor in part 1 of the final 3 HOH. So we'll see. Also, we have to consider, will Monty beat Taylor? After last night's jury segment in the episode, it's looking a little bit better. And it is certainly very possible. But I think we also can all agree at this point that he probably has a much better chance against Turner. But we'll see. So that's kind of the summary, right? Here are my thoughts. Monty is every winner that you've seen since the endgame comps have become more winnable, since that part 3 has become a trivia instead of a crapshoot, since the final 4 vetoes have become more and more physical. He is every winner you have seen since that happened, right? And I don't mean that as a dig. Like, he is somebody that both the audience and his fellow contestants recognized as the biggest threat to win the game from the second he entered the house. His game should, I think, be looked at in 3 phases. First, the beginning of his game was defined by his social skills. He attracted a lot of allies, all kinds of allies, right away for his easygoing nature, his confident presence. He attracted people to him. He's a big, strong guy with a charming personality. Again, when he wants to turn that on, and that really worked out for him. It was really the opposite of sort of Taylor's initial time in the game, right? And I definitely would credit a lot of that to his social game. The second phase of his game was the weakest. He couldn't really hack it at the schemer role. And after he got caught, he kind of coasted for a while, as he both fairly and unfairly started losing his allies to other people. I'm talking about Joseph moving a little bit closer to Taylor. I'm talking about Kyle unfairly deciding he didn't want to be over there with Monty. He starts losing some other people elsewhere. And he kind of starts to just drift in the game a little bit. But the third phase of his game starts during the split house. He starts working to win allies within his alliance again. He starts working the game again. He picks up both Taylor and Turner when they lose their previously closest ally. When Taylor loses Joseph, he picks up Taylor. When Turner loses Kyle, he picks up Turner. He's picking up the scraps. He's the true leftover guy here. He then is able to take out Michael and dominate the end game competitions. That's that third phase of his game. That third phase, though, is not without its flaws. His jury management starts to leave something to be desired, and his overconfidence could end up costing him the whole game. thinking that he definitely can beat Taylor when maybe she actually has a chance to beat him. Thinking that Turner will definitely take him when perhaps Turner might actually turn around and cut him. So we'll see. I did say, though, up top, it's a pretty textbook game at this point. It's very reminiscent of Casey, of Jackson, of Xavier, at least in the broad strokes, right? It wasn't the flashiest game, wasn't the most inspiring game, it wasn't the most dominant game, but he always put in the work and he got it done when he needed to get it done. And if he wins this game, in my eyes, it will be primarily due to his charisma. He's so good at making people feel comfortable and heard when he wants to, which is one of the reasons why he always had options in the game and was able to pick up pieces when they were dropped on the floor. And it may be the reason the jury decides to give him the win. And that's Monty's Big Brother 24 game. In a nutshell. Thank you for joining. I will, of course, be back tomorrow morning, 11 a.m. Eastern, where I will update you on everything that happens today on the Big Brother 24 live feeds, including likely feeds I think have been down for part 2 of the final 3 HOH. We'll have a winner of part 2. I'm expecting it to be Monty. I think he has a leg up in this competition, but you never know. And then what kind of conversations happen after that, right? If it is Monty, I think it'll be very difficult to tell where Turner is leaning, because I think that Turner will continue to tell Monty he'll take him. If it's Taylor, I think that will be very telling, because if it's Taylor, I think that Turner, if he does intend to cut Monty, will tell Taylor, hey, I intend to cut Monty. I want to bring you. Because he no longer has to worry about Monty being mad at him and not taking him. But if Monty is competing in part 3, then I think he'll continue to say he's going to take Monty. So if Taylor wins part 2 and Turner doesn't tell Taylor that he wants to take her, I think that also tells us that he will take Monty, right? So Taylor winning, I think, exposes Turner for what he will actually do to us, hopefully. So I'll be talking about that tomorrow morning, again, at 11 a.m. Eastern. And I will also be talking through Turner's game. And if you thought Monty's was shorter than Taylor's, I'm just guessing, but given the volume of my notes, and believe me, I tried. I really did. It's probably going to be a shorter one for Turner tomorrow. I'll also be live tonight on Twitch, twitch.tv/Taran Armstrong, watching tonight's episode, and we'll be doing the recap of the recap after tonight's episode. You're not going to want to miss it. Recap of the recap, always a fun time. And then, of course, tomorrow we'll have the Q&A as well for the patrons of Rob as a Podcast. And the Big Brother 24 finale is going to be on Sunday night. I'll be live on Twitch watching and reacting to it live. And then we'll be live after to recap what goes down. So check all of that out. Find me again over on Twitch, twitch.tv/Taran Armstrong. If you enjoy these solo streams, if you enjoy the live feed updates in general, if you if you like me better than Turner, like the jury, he thinks the jury likes people better than him. Find me over on Twitch. I'll continue to stream in the off season, so we'll have some fun over there. You can find me as well on Twitter at Armstrong Taran. I'll be tweeting out most of the things that I'm doing. On post-show recaps, I'm talking about House of the Dragon. I'm dropping Among Us videos over on YouTube and all kinds of other stuff. So thank you all so much again for joining me here, and I will see all of you next time.